The training hall buzzed with nervous energy as cadets from 12 different species gathered for their first combat assessment at the Galactic Defense Academy. Maya Chen stood near the back wall, adjusting the weight of her standard-issue non-lethal baton. The weapon felt familiar in her hands, not much different from the riot control batons she had trained with back on Earth during her police academy days. Around her, alien cadets towered above her modest 5'6" frame. The Krathan warriors stretched nearly 8 feet tall, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the artificial lights. Their razor-sharp claws clicked against the floor as they moved, each step a reminder of their predatory heritage. The Vorthak cadets were slightly shorter but built like living tanks, their thick hides scarred from countless hunting expeditions on their homeworld. Even the more civilized species like the Zelani and Thrakari possessed natural weapons that could tear through steel. Maya had become used to being the smallest person in any room since arriving at the Academy 6 months ago. Earth was still new to the Galactic Federation, and humans were considered a curiosity rather than a threat. Most species viewed them as clever but physically weak, useful for technical roles but hardly warrior material. The Academy had accepted her application more as a diplomatic gesture than from any belief in her combat potential. Instructor Vex, a towering Krathan with scars covering half his face, stalked into the center of the training hall. His voice echoed off the walls as he explained the day's exercise. 12 cadets would enter a combat simulation together. The scenario involved protecting civilians from hostile forces in an urban environment. Each cadet would be equipped with non-lethal weapons only, as per Federation protocols for peacekeeping missions. The other cadets eyed Maya with a mixture of amusement and disdain. Zrak, a particularly arrogant Krathan, had made no secret of his belief that humans didn't belong in combat roles. His mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species as he looked at her baton. "Try not to hurt yourself with that stick, little human," he said, loud enough for the others to hear. Several of his friends joined in the laughter. Maya said nothing, instead focusing on checking her equipment one final time. The non-lethal baton was a standard Federation weapon, designed to deliver controlled electrical pulses that could temporarily disable most known species. It was lightweight, roughly 3 feet long, and covered in a non-slip grip. For most cadets, it was a backup weapon, something to use when their natural claws or strength weren't appropriate for the situation. The simulation chamber activated with a low hum, and suddenly the sterile training hall transformed into a busy marketplace on some distant world. Holographic civilians moved between stalls selling exotic goods, while the smell of alien spices filled the air. The scenario was designed to test their ability to distinguish between threats and innocence while protecting the population from harm. "Hostile forces detected in Sector 7, the computer announced. "Civilian evacuation in progress. Neutralize threats while minimizing collateral damage." The Predator cadets immediately charged toward the indicated sector, their natural hunting instincts taking over. Maya held back, observing the situation. She had learned early in her military training that rushing into unknown situations was the fastest way to get killed or cause unnecessary casualties. Through her earpiece, she heard the other cadets calling out targets and coordinating their attack. But something felt wrong. The computer had said hostile forces were detected, but she couldn't see any obvious threats in Sector 7. The holographic civilians in that area seemed genuinely panicked, not like actors playing a role. Maya moved carefully through the marketplace, using stalls and displays for cover. Her police training had taught her to read body language and look for signs of deception. Most of the civilians were running away from Sector 7, but a few were moving against the crowd, heading toward different areas of the marketplace. She followed one of these suspicious figures, a holographic alien wearing the typical clothes of a marketplace vendor. While the other cadets were searching Sector 7 for enemies that weren't there, this figure was placing what looked like explosive devices under food stalls throughout the market. Maya keyed her communicator. "This is Cadet Chen. I have visual on actual hostile planting devices in Sectors 3 and 4. Advise other units to pull back from 7 and reposition." The response was immediate and dismissive. "Chen, return to your assigned sector immediately," came Zrak's voice. "We don't need the human getting lost and causing problems." But Maya had already moved into position behind the disguised hostile. Her baton was in her hand, set to its lowest power setting. The figure was concentrating on its task, completely unaware of her presence. Maya struck quickly and precisely, hitting nerve clusters she had memorized from countless anatomy classes. The holographic enemy collapsed silently. She quickly examined the device he had been planting. It was definitely an explosive, sophisticated enough to level half the marketplace. Maya carefully disarmed it using techniques she had learned during her bomb disposal certification on Earth. Moving to the next device, she repeated the process. The Predator cadets were still searching Sector 7, growing increasingly frustrated as they found nothing but terrified civilians. Their hunting instincts, so useful on their home worlds, were working against them in this complex scenario. Maya had just disarmed the third device when she heard weapons fire from Sector 7. Through her communicator, she heard Zrak shouting orders. They had identified several civilians as potential threats and were moving to neutralize them. The computer's voice crackled through the speakers, warning of civilian casualties. Negative points for excessive force, the system announced. Scenario difficulty increasing. Suddenly, the marketplace erupted in chaos. The remaining explosive devices detonated simultaneously, sending holographic debris flying through the air. Emergency lighting activated as the normal illumination failed. Through the smoke and confusion, Maya could see new hostiles emerging from hidden positions throughout the market. These weren't disguised infiltrators. These were combat troops, heavily armed and moving with military precision. The Predator cadets, caught off guard by the explosions, found themselves scattered and disoriented. Their natural aggression, which had served them well in other scenarios, left them vulnerable to coordinated attacks. Maya moved through the chaos like a ghost, her smaller size and police training allowing her to navigate the debris field without being detected. She had grown up in the crowded streets of Hong Kong, where quick reflexes and spatial awareness were essential for survival. The destroyed marketplace felt familiar, like the urban environments she had trained in during her SWAT certification. The first hostile she encountered was a large, reptilian creature carrying what looked like a plasma rifle. It was moving to flank Vorlak, a Vorthak cadet, who was pinned down behind an overturned food cart. Maya approached from behind, her baton crackling with electrical energy. The key to using non-lethal weapons effectively, she had learned, was understanding anatomy and knowing exactly where to strike. Different species had different vulnerabilities, and what would drop a human might barely slow down a Krathen. But electrical systems were universal. Every living creature relied on bioelectric impulses to function. Maya struck the hostile at the base of its skull, where the spinal column met the brain. The electrical pulse disrupted its nervous system instantly, sending it crashing to the ground. She quickly secured its weapon and moved on. The second hostile was more challenging. It had taken position on an elevated platform, using a long-range weapon to suppress the scattered cadets below. Maya couldn't approach directly without being seen, and climbing to its position would take too long. Instead, she used the marketplace's infrastructure against it. The platform was supported by decorative pillars that had been damaged in the explosions. Maya found the structural weak point and struck it precisely with her baton, not to deliver an electrical charge, but to use the weapon as a lever. Years of martial arts training had taught her how to apply force efficiently. The platform collapsed, sending the hostile tumbling into a pile of debris. It wasn't seriously injured, but it was definitely out of the fight. Maya continued moving through the battlefield, picking off enemies with surgical precision. Her approach was completely different from the other cadets. Where they relied on brute force and natural weapons, she used intelligence, timing, and intimate knowledge of anatomy to maximum advantage. The third hostile she encountered was engaged in close combat with Thrak, a Zelani cadet whose natural telepathic abilities were being disrupted by some kind of jamming device. The enemy was larger and stronger, slowly overpowering the smaller Zelani with brute force. Maya waited for the right moment, then struck with her baton at the hostile's elbow joint. The electrical pulse caused temporary paralysis in its arm, allowing Thrak to break free and gain the advantage. But before the Zelani could finish the fight, Maya had already moved on to the next target. By now, some of the other cadets had begun to notice what was happening. The human they had dismissed as weak and useless was systematically dismantling the enemy force, while they struggled to coordinate their own response. Maya's movements were efficient and purposeful, each strike calculated for maximum effect with minimum effort. The fourth and fifth hostiles fell in quick succession. Maya had learned to read the battlefield like a complex puzzle, identifying patterns and weaknesses that the Predator cadets missed entirely. Their focus on individual combat excellence left them vulnerable to coordinated attacks, while her police training emphasized situational awareness and tactical thinking. The sixth hostile was the most dangerous yet. A cybernetically enhanced creature with built-in weapons and armor plating, it had taken position in the center of the marketplace, using its superior firepower to keep the remaining cadets pinned down. Maya realized that a direct assault would be suicidal, even with her tactical advantages. Instead, she studied the environment around the hostel. The marketplace's power grid had been damaged in the explosions, but some systems were still functioning. Maya found an access panel and quickly rewired several connections, using skills she had learned during her electrical engineering courses. Suddenly, every metal surface in the hostile's vicinity became electrically charged. The creature's own armor conducted the current, overloading its cybernetic systems and shutting it down completely. Maya had turned the marketplace itself into a weapon. The seventh hostile never saw her coming. It was focused on coordinating the attack against Instructor Vex, who had entered the simulation to assist his struggling students. Maya approached from its blind spot and delivered a perfect strike to its central nervous system. The creature dropped like a stone. As she moved toward the eighth target, Maya became aware that the entire training hall had gone quiet. The other cadets had stopped fighting and were staring at her in amazement. Even Instructor Vex had paused his own combat to watch the small human cadet systematically dismantle enemies that had been giving his predator students serious trouble. Maya didn't let the attention distract her. The eighth hostile was trying to retreat, probably intending to regroup with reinforcements outside the marketplace. She cut off its escape route using her knowledge of the simulation's layout, then disabled it with a precise strike to its lower spine. The ninth and 10th hostiles were working together, trying to overwhelm Cadet Kyrex with coordinated attacks. Maya approached from above. Having found a way onto the marketplace's upper level through debris from the explosions, she dropped down between them, her baton spinning in a defensive pattern that kept both enemies at bay while she looked for openings. The first opening came when one hostile overextended itself trying to grab her. Maya redirected its momentum and sent it crashing into a support beam, then immediately pivoted to face its partner. The second hostile was more cautious, but that caution worked against it. Maya feinted left, then struck right, her baton finding the nerve cluster under its arm with surgical precision. The 11th hostile was the smartest of the group. It had been observing Maya's tactics and had positioned itself in a defensive location with multiple escape routes. This creature knew it was outmatched and was looking for a way to retreat safely. Maya respected intelligent opponents, but she also knew how to deal with them. Instead of attacking directly, she began herding the hostile toward a specific location in the marketplace. Her movements seemed random to the other observers, but she was actually executing a complex tactical maneuver she had learned during urban warfare training. The hostile found itself trapped in a corner without realizing how it had gotten there. Its escape routes had been systematically eliminated, and now it faced Maya in single combat with nowhere to run. The fight was brief and decisive. The 12th and final hostile was different from the others. It was larger, better armed, and clearly the leader of the group. This was the creature that had orchestrated the entire attack, and it wasn't about to go down easily. Maya could see intelligence in its eyes, along with something that might have been respect. They circled each other carefully, each looking for an advantage. The hostile had size and strength on its side, plus military-grade equipment that outclassed Maya's simple baton. But Maya had something more valuable: the experience of 11 consecutive victories, and the knowledge that she had already proven herself against impossible odds. The final battle was the longest and most challenging. The hostile used every trick in its arsenal, from advanced combat techniques to psychological warfare. It tried to intimidate Maya with displays of strength, attempted to corner her in disadvantageous positions, and even tried to use the other cadets as human shields. But Maya had been preparing for this moment her entire life, even before she knew it. Every martial arts class, every police training exercise, every moment of doubt and determination had led her to this point. She was no longer just Cadet Maya Chen, the small human who didn't belong among predators. She was a warrior in her own right, fighting with weapons forged in Earth's cities and refined in humanity's unique crucible of conflict and cooperation. The end came suddenly. The hostile made one mistake, allowing its confidence to override its caution for just an instant. Maya's baton found its target with perfect precision, and the massive creature collapsed to the ground. The simulation chamber fell silent except for the sound of her own breathing. Around her, 12 of the Academy's most promising predator cadets stared in stunned disbelief at the small human who had just accomplished what none of them could do together. The silence in the simulation chamber stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. Maya stood among the scattered holographic debris, her non-lethal baton still humming with residual energy. Around her, the 12 defeated hostiles lay unconscious or disabled, testament to what had just transpired. The marketplace simulation flickered and began to fade as the computer registered the scenario complete. Instructor Vex was the first to move, his massive Krathen frame stepping carefully through the debris field toward Maya. His scarred face was unreadable, mandibles clicking in what she had learned was either deep thought or suppressed emotion. The other cadets remained frozen in place, their various species equivalent of slack-jawed amazement written clearly across their alien features. Simulation terminated, the computer announced in its neutral voice. All hostile targets neutralized. 0 civilian casualties. Mission parameters exceeded. Performance analysis will be available in 30 minutes. Maya deactivated her baton and secured it to her belt, trying to ignore the way everyone was staring at her. She had always hated being the center of attention, preferring to work quietly and let her results speak for themselves. But there was no hiding from what had just happened. In less than 20 minutes, she had single-handedly accomplished what the entire group had failed to do together. Zrak finally found his voice, though it came out as more of a croak than his usual arrogant tone. How did you do that? Those were military-grade combat simulations, designed to challenge entire squads of trained soldiers. Maya shrugged, suddenly feeling very tired. I watched and I listened. Most of the hostiles telegraphed their moves well in advance. Once you understand their patterns, it's just a matter of being in the right place at the right time with the right technique. Right technique? Vorlak, the massive Vorthak, gestured with one of his trunk-like arms toward the disabled enemies. You took down a cybernetically enhanced combat unit with a training baton. That should be impossible. Impossible is just another word for something nobody's figured out how to do yet, Maya replied, unconsciously echoing something her first martial arts instructor had told her years ago. Everything has weaknesses. Even the most advanced armor has joints and connection points. Even the strongest creature needs a functioning nervous system to coordinate its movements. Instructor Vex had been examining the fallen hostiles while she spoke, his experienced eye cataloging the precision of each takedown. Cadet Chen, he said finally, his voice carrying a note she had never heard before. Report to my office in 1 hour for debriefing. The rest of you, standard post-exercise review in classroom 7. As the other cadets filed out, still whispering among themselves in a dozen different languages, Maya found herself alone with her thoughts for the first time since the exercise began. The simulation chamber had returned to its neutral gray walls, but she could still smell the phantom spices from the marketplace and hear the echo of combat in her ears. She had known this moment would come eventually. Earth was too new to the galactic community, humans too unknown a quantity, for her abilities to remain hidden forever. But she had hoped to have more time, to prove herself gradually rather than in one dramatic demonstration that would inevitably draw unwanted attention. The walk to Instructor Vex's office took her through the Academy's main corridor, past displays honoring the greatest warriors from dozens of worlds, Krathen battle leaders who had single-handedly held mountain passes against impossible odds, Vorthak champions who had defeated entire armies with nothing but their natural weapons, Zelani tacticians whose telepathic coordination had won battles before they even began. Maya paused before one display she had never really noticed before. It showed a group of beings she didn't recognize, smaller than most of the other species but standing together with unmistakable confidence. The nameplate read, The Vanished Protectors, Species Designation Unknown, Last Confirmed Contact, 847 standard years ago. They were warriors like no others, said a voice behind her. Maya turned to see Kyrex, the Zelani cadet, whose telepathic abilities had been jammed during the simulation. His large, luminous eyes held a thoughtful expression. My people's historical records speak of them with great respect. They appeared without warning when civilizations were threatened, fought with impossible skill and courage, then vanished just as mysteriously. What happened to them? Maya asked, studying the display more carefully. There was something familiar about those beings, something that made her think of human proportions and human expressions. No one knows for certain, Kyrex replied. Some say they transcended physical existence. Others believe they retreated to hidden worlds beyond known space. But the stories my grandmother told spoke of another possibility. He paused, his telepathic abilities picking up emotions Maya didn't even realize she was projecting. They say the vanished protectors didn't disappear at all. They simply learned to hide among other species, waiting for the galaxy to have need of them again. Before Maya could ask what he meant, Kyrex nodded respectfully and continued down the corridor, leaving her alone with her thoughts and a growing sense of unease. Instructor Vex's office was larger than most faculty spaces, decorated with weapons and trophies from his own military service. The massive Krathen sat behind a desk that would have comfortably seated 3 humans, studying data displays that showed detailed analysis of the simulation. When Maya entered, he gestured to a chair that had been adjusted to human proportions. "Sit," he said simply. "We have much to discuss." Maya took the offered seat and waited. She had learned early in her academy training that alien cultures had very different concepts of appropriate conversation timing. Pushing for immediate answers was often considered rude or aggressive. Vex manipulated the displays, showing her replay footage from multiple angles. "Computer analysis confirms what I observed directly. 12 hostile neutralizations in 17 minutes and 34 seconds. Average engagement time per target, 87 seconds. 0 wasted motion. 0 tactical errors. Perfect situational awareness throughout the encounter." He paused the display on an image of Maya striking the cybernetically enhanced hostile's armor joints. This particular takedown has the tactical analysis computer confused. According to its models, a non-lethal Baton should not have been capable of overloading military-grade cybernetics through armor plating. "I rerouted power from the marketplace's electrical grid," Maya explained. "The creature's armor became a conductor instead of protection." "Yes, I observed that. What the computer cannot understand is how you knew the precise frequency and voltage required to achieve that effect. That information is not included in any course material at this academy." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. She had acted on instinct during the simulation, drawing from knowledge she wasn't entirely sure she possessed. "I studied electrical engineering before joining the academy. It was mostly applied problem-solving." Vex's mandibles clicked slowly. A sign she had learned indicated skepticism. "Cadet Chen, I have been training warriors for 37 standard years. I have seen prodigies from every known species, beings whose natural gifts exceeded anything their people had produced before. What I witnessed today was not natural talent or superior training." He manipulated the display again, showing her strike patterns and movement efficiency ratings. "This is the combat performance of someone with centuries of experience, not a recent academy graduate. Your techniques show influences from dozens of different martial traditions, many of which are not taught anywhere in Federation space." Maya remained silent, unsure how to respond to accusations she didn't fully understand herself. The truth was that she had always been different, even by human standards. Her reflexes were faster, her spatial awareness more acute, her understanding of combat dynamics almost instinctive, but she had attributed these abilities to genetics and training, not anything supernatural. "There are protocols," Vex continued, "for dealing with cadets who demonstrate abilities beyond expected parameters. The Federation Council maintains strict guidelines about enhanced individuals and potential security risks." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Maya realized she was at a crossroads that would determine not just her future at the academy, but possibly her freedom and safety. "What kind of protocols?" "That depends entirely on the source of your abilities." Vex leaned back in his chair, studying her with the calculating gaze of a veteran interrogator. "If you are the product of genetic modification or cybernetic enhancement, there are medical procedures to verify and document such alterations. If you represent some previously unknown human capability, you would become a subject for extensive study and research." Maya felt her hands clench involuntarily. The idea of becoming a laboratory specimen, poked and prodded by scientists trying to unlock her secrets, was almost as terrifying as the alternative implications. "However," Vex continued, "there is a third possibility, one that the computer analysis suggests but cannot prove." He manipulated the display one final time, showing a comparison chart that made Maya's heart nearly stop. Her combat performance metrics were overlaid against historical data from the vanished protectors. The match was nearly perfect. "The Federation has been searching for evidence of the vanished protectors for over 800 years. Vex said quietly. "Some of my people believe they were the greatest warriors the galaxy has ever known. Beings whose very existence kept the dark forces of the universe in check. When they disappeared, many civilizations fell to threats that had previously been contained." Maya stared at the data display, her mind racing through implications she wasn't ready to consider. You think I'm connected to these ancient warriors somehow? I think, Vex said carefully, that humanity's appearance in galactic affairs may not be as coincidental as most believe. I think your species may have been part of galactic civilization far longer than your official first contact records indicate. The room fell silent as Maya processed this possibility. If Vex was right, it would mean everything humans believed about their place in the galaxy was wrong. It would mean Earth wasn't a newcomer struggling to find its place among established civilizations, but the return of something that had been lost long ago. What happens now? She asked finally. Now, Vex said, you have a choice to make. I can report your performance through official channels, which will result in immediate investigation and likely detention, while authorities determine if you represent a threat to Federation security. Or you can help me understand what you really are, and together we can decide how best to handle this information. His scarred face showed something that might have been sympathy. I have been a soldier longer than you have been alive. Cadet Chen. I have seen what happens when bureaucrats and politicians become involved in matters they do not understand. It is rarely beneficial to anyone involved. Maya considered her options, none of which seemed particularly appealing, but Vex had shown her more consideration than she had any right to expect, and his military experience might be valuable in navigating whatever came next. If I agree to work with you, she said slowly, what exactly would that involve? Research. Careful, discrete research into your abilities and their possible origins. Training exercises designed to explore the full extent of your capabilities without drawing official attention. And preparation for what may come when the galaxy learns that humanity is more than it appears to be. And if we discover something that threatens Federation security? Vex's mandibles clicked in. What she had learned was his equivalent of a grim smile. Then we will deal with that threat appropriately, as warriors should. Maya stood and walked to the office's small window, looking out at the academy grounds where cadets from dozens of species trained together in the hope of building a peaceful galaxy. The weight of decision pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. Everything in her training told her to trust the system, to report through proper channels and let established authorities handle the situation. But everything in her instincts suggested that would be a mistake of potentially catastrophic proportions. If I agree, she said without turning around, I want complete honesty between us. No hidden agendas, no classified operations I'm not informed about. If we're going to do this, we do it as partners. Agreed, Vex said immediately. Though I should warn you that honesty may lead us to discoveries neither of us is prepared for. Maya turned back to face him, her decision made. Then we'd better be ready to adapt quickly. For the first time since she had known him, Instructor Vex smiled with genuine warmth. Welcome to the most dangerous research project in the galaxy, Cadet Chen. I suspect we are about to change the course of galactic history. Outside the window, the Academy's training grounds continued their normal routine, completely unaware that everything they thought they knew about humanity was about to be challenged. Maya watched the cadets practicing their combat forms and wondered how many of them would still consider her a friend when they learned what she might really be. The answers, she suspected, would come sooner than any of them were ready for. 3 weeks after the simulation that changed everything, Maya found herself in a restricted section of the academy she never knew existed. Deep beneath the main training facilities, Instructor Vex had constructed a private research laboratory using his considerable authority and connections. The space was equipped with advanced testing equipment, historical databases, and training areas designed to push her abilities to their absolute limits. Maya stood in the center of a combat chamber that made the regular simulation rooms look primitive by comparison. Holographic projectors created environments with perfect fidelity, while sensor arrays monitored every aspect of her performance down to the molecular level. Today's test was designed to measure her reaction times against multiple simultaneous threats, something that should have been impossible for any single individual to handle effectively. Beginning Scenario 7 Alpha, the computer announced. Threat level, extreme. Multiple hostile contacts across all vectors. Civilian rescue parameters active. The chamber transformed into a three-dimensional battlefield unlike anything Maya had experienced before. She stood on a narrow bridge spanning a deep chasm, with hostile forces attacking from above, below, and both ends of the bridge simultaneously. Civilians were trapped in various locations, each requiring different rescue techniques and approaches. Maya's enhanced awareness kicked in immediately. Time seemed to slow as her consciousness expanded to encompass every detail of the rapidly evolving situation. She could track 17 different threats simultaneously while calculating optimal movement patterns and strike sequences that would neutralize enemies and rescue civilians with maximum efficiency. Her baton sang through the air as she moved, each strike precisely calculated for its specific target. She wasn't fighting randomly anymore, but executing a complex dance that had been programmed into her reflexes by sources she was only beginning to understand. Every movement flowed seamlessly into the next, creating a continuous pattern of motion that left destroyed enemies and rescued civilians in her wake. The first wave of attackers came from above, descending on cables in a coordinated assault pattern. Maya's response was instantaneous and devastating. She used the bridge's support cables as leverage points, swinging herself into positions that allowed her to strike multiple targets with each movement. The attackers' own momentum became a weapon against them as Maya redirected their kinetic energy into precisely placed throws that sent them plummeting into the chasm below. The second wave attacked from the bridge's far end, advancing in formation with energy shields and heavy weapons. Maya sprinted directly toward them, using their own confidence against them. As they prepared to cut her down with concentrated fire, she dropped beneath their sightlines and rolled under their shields, striking at ankle joints and nerve clusters with surgical precision. The third wave was the most challenging, emerging from concealed positions within the bridge structure itself. These were close-quarters specialists, armed with melee weapons and trained to fight in confined spaces. But Maya had grown up in the cramped alleys of Hong Kong, where spatial awareness and economic motion were essential for survival. She turned the narrow confines of the bridge into advantages, using every surface and obstacle as tools in her arsenal. Scenario complete, the computer announced after what felt like hours but had actually been less than 4 minutes. All hostiles neutralized, all civilians rescued. Performance parameters exceeded by factor of 12. Maya deactivated her baton and stood breathing heavily in the center of the now empty chamber. Each test revealed new capabilities she didn't remember learning, skills that seemed to emerge from some deep reservoir of knowledge that existed just below her conscious awareness. Remarkable, Vex said as he entered the chamber, his scarred face showing the mixture of awe and concern that had become his standard expression when reviewing her test results. Your performance continues to improve with each scenario, as if the tests themselves are activating dormant programming. Programming, Maya repeated, the word carrying uncomfortable implications. You make it sound like I'm some kind of machine. Not a machine, Vex corrected, manipulating a data tablet to show her latest performance metrics, but perhaps something that was designed and prepared for specific purposes. The historical records I've been researching suggest that the vanished protectors were not born warriors, but created ones. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. Created how? By whom? That information was lost with their disappearance, Vex admitted, but the fragmentary records suggest they were ordinary members of their species who underwent some kind of transformation process. The change gave them abilities far beyond their original capabilities, but at a cost that was never clearly documented. Maya walked to the chamber's observation window, looking out at the academy's main levels where normal cadets went through normal training routines. Sometimes she envied their certainty, their clear understanding of who they were and what they were meant to become. Have you learned anything about why they disappeared? She asked. Vex joined her at the window, his massive frame casting a long shadow across the chamber floor. Several theories, none of them comforting. Some records suggest they completed their purpose and chose to withdraw from galactic affairs. Others indicate they were called to deal with a threat so dangerous that they had to sacrifice themselves to stop it. And the third possibility? That they didn't disappear at all, but went into hiding to prepare for something even worse that was coming. Maya turned to face him, seeing her own fears reflected in his alien features. Something like, what? Before Vex could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Emergency lighting activated as the computer's voice echoed through the corridors. All personnel to emergency stations. Unknown vessels detected approaching Academy space. Defensive protocols activated. Maya and Vex rushed to the command center, where they found chaos. The Academy's senior staff were gathered around tactical displays, showing multiple unknown ships approaching at high speed. The vessels were unlike anything in Federation databases, their designs both ancient and terrifyingly advanced. Long-range sensors indicate 12 major warships and over 40 support vessels, reported Commander Thex, the Academy's Zelani director. They're not responding to communication attempts, and their approach vector suggests hostile intent. Admiral Corvex, the massive Krathan who served as the Academy's military advisor, studied the displays with the calm attention of a career warrior. Energy signatures are off the charts. Whatever those ships are, they carry enough firepower to level everything in this system. Estimated time to weapons range? Vex asked. 14 minutes, Thex replied. Federation response ships are en route, but they won't arrive for at least 30 minutes. Maya watched the tactical display with growing unease. Something about the approaching ships seemed familiar, though she was certain she had never seen their designs before. Their movement patterns were too precise, too coordinated for any normal military force. Have you tried broadcasting surrender terms? She asked. The senior officers turned to look at her with expressions ranging from surprise to offense. Admiral Corvex's mandibles clicked aggressively. Cadet, the Galactic Defense Academy does not surrender to unknown threats. That's not what I meant, Maya said, studying the ship's formation more carefully. I'm wondering if they're even interested in conquest. Look at their approach pattern. They're not trying to establish siege positions or cut off escape routes. They're coming straight for us with maximum speed and firepower. Vex caught on immediately. You think they're here for something specific, or someone? Maya replied, the pieces of a terrible puzzle falling into place in her mind. Suddenly, one of the approaching ships broke formation and accelerated ahead of the others. It was smaller than the main warships but moved with fluid grace that seemed to defy physics. As it approached the Academy's outer defenses, it began broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't have existed. Maya felt the transmission as much as heard it, the alien communication resonating in parts of her consciousness she hadn't known existed. Images and concepts flooded her awareness. Ancient battles fought across impossible distances. Warriors who sacrificed everything to hold back cosmic horrors, and a purpose so vast that individual lives became meaningless in its pursuit. Maya, Vex said urgently. What's happening to you? She realized she was standing rigid, her eyes unfocused as information downloaded directly into her brain. When she finally regained awareness of her surroundings, she found herself on the floor with Vex and several medical technicians hovering over her with concerned expressions. The ships, she gasped, struggling to sit up. They're not here to attack the Academy. They're here for me. What? Commander Thex moved closer, her telepathic abilities probing Maya's emotional state. Cadet, what makes you think that? Because they're not unknown ships, Maya said, understanding flooding through her as suppressed memories began to surface. They're protector vessels, and they've been waiting 800 years for humanity to produce someone like me. The command center fell silent as the implications of her statement sank in. Outside, the approaching ships had slowed their advance and were taking up positions around the Academy in a pattern that was clearly defensive rather than aggressive. Explain, Admiral Corvex demanded. Maya stood slowly, feeling knowledge that wasn't quite her own settling into place in her mind. The vanished protectors didn't disappear. They're still out there, still fighting threats that would destroy entire civilizations, but they're dying out, and they've been searching for species capable of producing new protectors to join their ranks. And you believe humanity is such a species? Vex asked. I believe humanity is the species they've been waiting for, Maya corrected. We're not just capable of becoming protectors, we're their descendants. Earth wasn't contacted by accident 6 months after I started showing enhanced abilities. They've been monitoring us for generations, waiting for individuals who could handle the transformation process. The lead ship had now entered the Academy's immediate vicinity, its massive bulk blocking out stars as it moved with impossible precision. Maya could feel its presence like a physical weight, calling to something deep in her genetic memory. Communication incoming, reported one of the technicians. Text only, in standard Federation script. The message appeared on the main display. Simple and direct. We require the heir to speak with us. Maya stepped forward, understanding that her life as she knew it was about to end forever. I think that's me. Absolutely not, Vex said immediately. We don't know their intentions or what they mean by heir. This could be an elaborate trap or some form of alien recruitment that we don't understand. It's not a trap, Maya replied, certainty growing in her voice as more suppressed knowledge surfaced. They're offering me a choice. Join them in their mission to protect the galaxy from threats beyond normal understanding, or remain here and let my abilities fade away unused. And if you refuse? Maya looked at the massive ships surrounding the Academy, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy planets but maintaining perfect discipline despite the Federation vessels now approaching to challenge them. They'll leave, and they won't come back. Humanity will remain part of the normal galactic community, unaware of the greater threats that exist in the dark spaces between civilizations. And when those threats finally break through the barriers the protectors have been maintaining for millennia, no one will be prepared for what comes next. The command center buzzed with urgent conversations as senior staff tried to process information that challenged everything they thought they knew about galactic security. Maya stood at the center of it all, feeling the weight of a decision that would affect not just her own life, but the future of every civilization in known space. If I go with them, she said finally, what happens to Earth? To humanity's place in the Federation? Another message appeared on the display. Humanity will continue as before, protected but unaware. The heir's choice affects only the heir. Maya realized they were offering her a way out, a chance to sacrifice her normal life to keep her species safe from knowledge and responsibilities they weren't ready for. It was the same choice the protectors had made for themselves centuries ago. She looked around the command center at beings from dozens of different species, all of them united in their desire to build a peaceful galaxy through cooperation and understanding. They had no idea how fragile their civilization really was, or how much they depended on warriors they didn't even know existed. I need to speak with them, Maya said quietly. Maya, no, Vex protested. Once you board that ship, we may never see you again. She smiled at the massive Krathan who had become her unexpected mentor and friend. Then you'd better remember everything you learned about me, because someday humanity might need to produce another protector. Before anyone could stop her, Maya activated her communicator and sent a message to the waiting ship. Request permission to come aboard for discussion. The response was immediate. Transport commencing. Light filled the command center as Maya felt herself dissolving into energy patterns that existed beyond normal physics. Her last conscious thought as the Academy faded around her was that she finally understood why the protectors had vanished from known space. Some duties were too important and too dangerous for normal civilizations to bear, and some choices could only be made by those willing to sacrifice everything for the protection of others. The story of Maya Chen, Academy Cadet, had come to an end. The legend of what she might become was just beginning.